I very recently read a book called Superfast Ultimate Primetime Nation, written by an Englishman. It's very gung ho about India's prospects over the next 3 or 4 decades. The author asserts very confidently and very cheerfully that India is going to become one of the greatest nations in the world very soon, within another generation, by 2050 at the latest. And he insists, reminding people of India's history, that unlike many other nations, India will not reach a milestone. India will return to a milestone. Now, about this second part of his argument, there cannot be much doubt because in the 16th or 17th century, we all know that India was the richest, most prosperous, and culturally perhaps one of the most advanced nations of the earth. There are some figures which say that she produced almost a quarter of the entire world's GDP, a position that has not yet been taken over even by the United States of America in the 20th century. Now, this author might be much more gung-ho than many others, but even far more sober analysts and observers are saying that despite all her problems, her poverty, her vast horde of illiterate and disorganized people, her corruption, her rickety government, her poor infrastructure, and so on and so forth, these things have been listed ad nauseum. Despite all that, India is very rapidly developing, especially has been rapidly developing in almost all spheres over the last 2 decades. And if she simply manages to keep up this pace for another generation or so, she will certainly be one of the most important nations in the world. There is no question about that. Some people say that she will have the third largest economy in the world by then, by 2050 or 60, after the United States and the People's Republic of China. A distant third, maybe, sadly, but still, definitely the third biggest economy in the world. Given her enormous population, she will still be a fairly poor or hard up country. But still, as we can see all around us today, she has made great leaps in many different spheres and she will definitely make bigger strides in the coming decades. So there's no question about it. Those who are in their teens and in their 20s now are growing up in one of the most important countries in the world to be. Now, since my target audience essentially consists of young people, those who are currently my students, those who have recently, which means within the last 10 or 15 years become my ex-students, are all in their teens and their 20s or early 30s, I want them to think, to be happy that this is the era that they are living in. India has seen very dark times and that we have emerged from it is good news for everybody, for everyone concerned. But as we all know, there are so many minus points which are still holding us back and still making us ashamed before the rest of the world. Whether you think of the vast army of child labor in this country or the kind of harassment and trouble and oppression that women suffer, especially in rural and poor and traditional families, or the degree of corruption and inefficiency in our public life, or the fact that technologically we are still hopelessly dependent upon a few Western nations and Japan. There are many things that we'll have to very quickly address and redress if we really want to catch up with the front-ranking countries in the world. Mere per capita wealth, mere total wealth or per capita wealth do not say very much about how advanced a country is. Now, my question to all of you is, it's a truism that it is the citizens, individually and en masse, who make a nation. And so it is what the citizens do or think of doing or don't want to do that decide what that nation's future is going to be. One of the great American presidents, John F. Kennedy, in the early 1960s, told his countrymen, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. Can you ask that question to yourself? What are the things that we can do as individuals, as families, as neighborhoods, as communities? What can we do to make our nation great faster? I've been traveling around the country a bit, and several things have occurred to me recently. Firstly, that India is so enormously rich, culturally speaking, and yet, why are we not sufficiently proud of that richness? Why, for instance, do young, smart Indians listen so keenly, so raptly to hip hop music and rock music and rap music and things like that, when India has probably the richest and most diverse musical tradition in the world? Why, on the other hand, are we so chauvinistic about our country that we chafe at any kind of criticism that we hear about her, and yet we don't do a thing about not getting adequate gold and silver medals in the Olympics? Why do we go around wearing t-shirts emblazoned with things like, Tommy Hilfiger or Crocodile or, Diesel and things like that? I often say in my classroom that I will admit that India has really become one of the front-ranking countries in the world. Well, Americans will walk around New York wearing t-shirts saying Jai Shri Ram or Bom Shankar or something like that. I'm not being either facetious or parochial. Think about it. Wouldn't that really make you proud? A country becomes great when her culture is adopted by other countries. Never the other way around. There was a time, it's called the Golden Age of India, when India's culture spread far and wide, from as far as Afghanistan to one side to all over the Far East on the other. Now, you cannot spread your culture far and wide until you've done two things. You've got rid of the worst aspects of that culture. Think about people spitting right and left everywhere they go. And until you have started taking pride in everything that is good about your culture. Are you one of those? Think about it. Are you trying to become one of those who are genuinely proud of everything that is good about their country and ashamed of everything that is bad about their country, that is bad in themselves, and therefore they want to make a genuine effort to get rid of all that badness? If, for instance, someone asks me, mention one thing that you will praise about the present Prime Minister, you know what I will say? It's the Swachh Bharat campaign. Regardless of his politics, regardless of his ideological leanings, regardless of the fact that I don't like his beard, I simply cannot hide the fact that I admire him for it, because he, by God, is the first Prime Minister who has ever thought about making this a national issue. That it's a national shame that we are such an untidy, unclean country, and that we must, all of us, individually and collectively, at the governmental level, in public life and in private, in the family hearth, do something about it so that India becomes a cleaner nation. It is this country where the great and the good and the wise have said cleanliness is next to godliness, and see what we do to our country. Now, likewise, can you think of other things that you can do and you can tell your family and friends to do that will make India a better nation, a greater nation within your lifetime? Believe me, it will feel great. If you are one of those people who have been following my blog attentively over the last few years, you will see how much I have written about this. There's a separate tag along the right-hand column which says India. If you click on that tag, you will see how much I have written about this, how much I care about my country, how much I really want this country to be great. You don't become a great nation by trying to cry down others. You become a great nation by removing your faults and building upon your virtues. Now, India has virtues galore. First and foremost, we must learn about them and respect them and try to adopt them and develop them. And a time will come when we can say in all fairness, in all truth, that we live in the greatest country on earth. I will end this video by recalling another American president, a later president, George Bush II. Now, I don't admire him as a great president, but he was certainly a great American. Somebody once asked him, "Sir, why do you travel so little to other countries?" And you know what he said? He said, "I live in the greatest country on earth. Why should I go to other countries?" My God, when can we, whether we are prime ministers or ordinary citizens, have the strength of character and the certainty that what we are speaking is the truth. When will we be able to say this? I don't need to travel far and wide because I live in the greatest country on earth. Think about it, all of you. I would like to have feedback from you here on this YouTube channel itself, if possible. Also, please give me suggestions about what kind of things you would like me to talk about in future videos. That's enough for now.